Good morning, good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to our developer coaching event. Today, we will focus on logical migration to Autonomous Database from Azure using Oracle Zero Downtime Migration, also known as ZDR. And we are happy to be joined by Emiel and Mihai, who will be your speakers for this event. My name is Violeta, and I'm part of the digital customer experience team and will be one of the hosts for this event. Emiel, Mihai, would you like to say a couple of things about you?
Yes, of course. Thank you for your letter. So my name is Emiel Ramakers, and I'm a Oracle Database at Azure specialist working at Oracle with customers who want to take up that service.
Yeah, and I am Mihai Costeanu. I am part of the data modernise specialists, and we're working on Oracle database migrations from on-premise to cloud and for third-party databases to Oracle databases.
Thank you. An important note regarding the demos, because of course, as every developer coaching event, we are usually doing a lot of demos and less presentation. This is how we do and we cover services in these events. So all the examples and data that we present are purely fictive, and they are not showcasing any real use case. That's really important for you to be aware of. With that, I think I'm done, and I would like to pass over to Mihai. Mihai, over to you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so let's speak a little bit about our main topic of today. It's how to migrate to Autonomous Database 23 AI at Azure. And the method that we're going to use to achieve this is by this tool, which is called Zero Downtime Migration. This tool was built especially to make things easier when it comes to migrating Oracle databases, not only to Autonomous Database, but to various type of Oracle database targets. It's a very simple to use tool. It's a light tool. It has only 800 megabytes in size. It's an orchestration tool. Basically, what it does in the background, it automates all the steps needed for the migration process. And of course, depending on the business needs, customer can customize the workflow of the tool. Also, a very strong point of Zero Downtime Migration is that it can have a fleet approach. So it can migrate multiple databases at once, and it's a very comprehensive tool. It adheres to all the best practices when it comes to Oracle databases. It's compliant with maximal availability architecture, and it automates the encryption at database level, and so on. If we talk about the sources and the targets that work with CDM, we can see that all the scenarios are covered. So we can migrate databases from on-premise, from OCI, from exact data cloud at customers, and also from third-party clouds. And the targets as well cover most of the possible scenarios. We can migrate databases to OCI, to Oracle Database at Azure, to Oracle Database at Google Cloud, AWS. And we have a set of comprehensive migration methods that can be adapted easily to the business needs and to the type of target that we have. And now I pass the scene to Emiel, that is going to talk a little bit about Oracle Autonomous Database 23 AI at Azure.
Okay, thank you, Mihai. Right, yeah. So first of all, I'm going to talk about two things just for a few minutes. I'm going to talk about Oracle Database 23 AI, as you see on the screen, and also how to do that in Azure, which is new for the last year or so. So 23 AI is of course very exciting. Lots of new things. AR vector search, property graphs. That's the AI bits. But also things like the SQL firewall, which is new inside the database. Lots of reasons to want to go to 23 AI It's the new long-term support we release, so we really would like every customer to try to get to 23 AI as quickly as they can and use all of these great new features. Now, that is very true for if you run on OCI or if you run on-prem, but one thing that is new since about 11 months ago is that we now offer our Oracle database services, including Autonomous Database 23 AI, which we're going to talk about how to get there later. We offer those services on Azure now, and that is, of course, something that is new and very exciting. So we have our database services, Autonomous and Exadata database service, and also some adjoining services like the Autonomous Recovery service, which we now have at Azure, meaning that we have the trusted Oracle OCI database services that have been around for many years, but we place those inside an Azure data center, running locally in Azure, natively connected to the rest of the Azure network, and running really as an Azure service. So with your other Azure services, whatever that might be, you can connect to that with a low latency, local. It doesn't have to go anywhere else. It doesn't go to an OCI region and anything like that. It stays within Azure, and you therefore have a low latency connection from the rest of the Azure services that you might want to use to these database services, be that Autonomous or Exadata database service. Then go to the next slide. We then see that we indeed have these two database services. So if you want to do large workloads, maybe for all sorts of reasons, Exadata might be an excellent choice. Then we have that available, and then we also have Autonomous Database. Now, for both of those, we can use version 19 or version 23. So today we're really focusing on how to get to Autonomous Database 23 within Azure. So if you run all of your other things on Azure, then that's a perfect way of going ahead. And Mihai will talk a little bit how we're going to do that, and then we'll show you in real life.
Yep. So ZDM has a lot of migration methods that can be used to migrate to Oracle database. But since we are migrating to Autonomous Database, only the logical migration approach can apply here. And when it comes to Oracle Autonomous Database at Azure, we have these two approaches for logical migration. Is the logical offline migration, which basically use in the background data pump. Data pump will export the data from the source database, and then will move the data to the NFS Azure files, and then the ZDM will trigger the import on our source Autonomous Database in Azure. Now, this of course works for small databases, and if customers can accommodate a significant amount of downtime. But if we have, let's say, a real-life environment, a production environment that cannot accommodate large periods of downtime, we have the other ZDM logical approach, which is the online migration approach to Autonomous Database at Azure. And this is more or less similar with the logical offline, but it has an additional layer, which is a golden gate deployment that comes into place after the actual import of the data in the target database. So the data is exported, passed to the NFS files, then imported in the target Autonomous Database, and Golden Gate will synchronize the source database with the target database from the moment the export was finished till the current state of the source database. So Golden Gate will sync up the databases, and then we can verify the status if the databases are really in sync, and then we can decide, okay, let's move to the Autonomous Database, the data is in sync. we can move our production applications to the Autonomous Database. Let's speak a little bit about the Golden Gate deployment. Basically, this Golden Gate instance used by the logical online migration is a deployment especially built for migration purposes. So we need to take into account that this will not require an additional license for the usage of the Golden Gate deployment. It will be available for free for 180 days. This is an architecture based on microservices, and what ZDM does will access this Golden Gate deployment and create an extract and replicate process. Extract needed to extract the data from the source database, replicate needed to replicate the data from the source database to the target database. And now let's quickly go to the demo side of things. But before of that, I will quickly want to walk you through the guide for configuring ZDM for migrating Autonomous Database to Azure. There are some important things that need to be taken care of. And all of them are mentioned in this guide. For example, there are some prerequisites on the service hosts of the zero downtime deployment. So zero downtime, it's a zero downtime migration tool. It's recommended to be deployed on a standalone virtual machine. This virtual machine can reside both on the on-premise data center, or even can be provisioned in Azure in a compute instance, for example, in a virtual machine. And then we will need to take into account that this ZDM must have these operation systems and enough storage for it to be deployed, and some libraries to be, some packages to be installed. As well, on the target database, we need to set up a set of parameters. For example, we will need to enable Golden Gate replication and enable the parameters related to Golden Gate replication on the source database, put the database in archive log mode, creating a Golden Gate dedicated user, and so on. Also, very important, we need to properly configure the NFS share in Azure and then mount it both on the source database and on the Autonomous Database at Azure. In the Autonomous Database at Azure, there are certain steps that need to be followed. They are clearly described here. And using the built-in packages of the Autonomous Database, we can mount the NFS share to the Autonomous Database, and then ZDM tool will be able to read the data from the NFS from both the source database being the on-premise database and the target database being the Autonomous Database. Apart from that, we need to configure SSH connectivity between the ZDM host and the source database. All these steps are explained in this guide. Of course, another important bit is actually deploying the Golden Gate image on Docker. This can be easily done by provisioning an OCI Golden Gate deployment. I will quickly show that during the demo, and then copy the Docker image from this deployment to the Azure virtual machine, run it with Docker, and then you'll be able to use this Golden Gate deployment. Very important, during this deployment, you'll be prompted with this message, and you'll need to keep this password for further use, because this will be needed for ZDM to connect to the Golden Gate deployment. And last but not least, this is a sample of how the ZDM response file looks like. Actually, this file is needed for ZDM to be able to access all the layers in our architecture, the source database, the NFS share, the Golden Gate deployment, and also the target database. And here you can have a look of what kind of parameters are required for both, for all the steps. For example, for the data pump part, we need to specify the schema that we want to export, and also the how the NFS share is mounted on both of on the source and the target database. If our source database is a non-CDP database, we just need to specify this file, this data. If it is a multi-tenant database, a container database, we need to specify both areas here. For the target database, the autonomous database, only this information is needed: the OC, the admin username, and the Golden Gate user that has to be created as well on the autonomous database size. And then for a part of the orchestration process, ZDM user will use the OCI command line interface, OCI CLI, and we need to specify some information in order for ZDM to access the command line OCI CLI. And then last but not least, we need to specify information about our Golden Gate deployment, and we need to specify the Golden Gate hub URL, and that's it. Then ZDM will be able to orchestrate all the needed flows for the migration. And now let's pass to the actual environment that we've prepared for today's demo, and my colleague Emiel will show how to deploy an autonomous database at Azure and how to properly configure the NFS storage for ZDM. I will stop my share.
Thank you very much, Mihai. Yeah, so let's just take a quick step back. So we saw this in the document that Mihai just and in the slides that Mihai just shared. So this is the environment that we're trying to build. This is the environment that we have, and that Mihai will show the migration in later. But in order to have that, the bit that I'm going to concentrate on is this bottom right corner, right? So I'm going to create an autonomous database in Azure, and I'm going to create an NFS share so that the autonomous database can reach it, and then also our source database can reach it. Now I've got to say that for the actual migration that Mihai will show you, we've got one that is pre-set up because it would take too long in the limited time that we've got to run through everything. But I'm going to show you how we set those up and how you would do that here. So I'm in my Azure portal, and the first thing that I need to do is I'm going to go and create an autonomous database in Azure. Now, in order to do that, I need to place that in an Azure VNet. So this is just like any other service, and I have pre-created a VNet. We're going to use this VNMS2 VNet here. Note that I'm doing that we're doing this in the East US region. So my VNMS2 has a subnet already. Well, actually, it has two, as you can see, and there's the default subnet, and we've also created an ADB subnet to create those autonomous databases in. Now, one thing that is important when you create an Oracle database at Azure is that the subnet that you place them in has to be delegated to the Oracle database at Azure service. So in this case, when you create the subnet, it has to be delegated to the service, which means that only the service can use it and nothing else. So in this case, this is already done. I've got my ADB subnet in this network. So go back home, I select my Oracle database at Azure service. And as you can see, I have the two options, Oracle Autonomous Database Service and Oracle Exadata Database Service. So in this case, we're going to create an ADB, and I'm going to just hit create here. And as with any other Azure service, I've selected my subscription and my resource group. And then I give it a name, which in this case will just be ADB, and I'm doing that in East US because that's where we're working here. But you can do this in other regions as well, of course. So in this case, we're going to create a data warehouse. The other option is an ATP, but they're just flavors of effectively the same service. And of course, we want to create 23 because that was the whole point of being here. We want to move to 23 AI. I can select my eCPU count, whether I want auto scaling. I'm going to select a minimum of 1 terabyte storage, and again, I want to auto scale that. I have 60 days of backup retention, and I keep the password. And then I can select whether I want to bring my own license or whether I want to pay for 4 days inclusive of the license. So I'm going to go for license included here, and the advanced options are really just about character sets. So I don't mind about that now. In networking, this is the important place where I select my VNet that I was showing you earlier that I pre-created. So that was VNMS2. And then it lets me select a subnet. But of course, as I said earlier, the only subnets that we can use are the delegated subnets. So that is the only one that you will see here. So my ADB subnet MS is that subnet. Some questions about maintenance and giving consent to use service. Some tagging if I want to do that. And then in the traditional Azure way, I go to review and create to go and review the parameters that I gave, and then I can hit the create button. So to save a bit of time, I won't hit the create button right now, but I'm going to show you what happens. So this is the ADB 23 AI that we created earlier, and that we'll be using to migrate to in a minute. So once you've hit the create button, you just get all the overview here of your ADB 23 AI. You see the network that this is in. You can have a look at your connection strings, your disaster recovery options, etc., anything that you might want to do. So the second step that we needed some NFS storage. So this is just general Azure stuff, right? So I'm going to create a storage account. I started typing there and go to hit create. And again, this is where I need to type. So I'm selecting my resource group. And then I'm selecting my region, East US. It has to be a lowercase. Voilà. There we go, and then I select all Azure files. In this case, that's how I can create my NFS. The rest of it, use as you see fit. There were no specific parameters there. Minimum TLS version has to be 1.2, and again, use as you see fit. But again, there's no. And then I need to create a private endpoint for this to go to. So again, this is East US. This is my private endpoint for my storage, and here I need to select that this is a file sub-resource, and now I need to put this in a different VNet. So I have an additional VNet here, VNMS4, which is also in this region, and there I just have my default that the subnet there doesn't have any requirements, so I just select the default subnet, click OK. So this private endpoint will be created as part of the creation of the storage account, and I go through, and then if I'm again going to cancel out of this, show you the one that you already have, which is this one. So you see everything that I was talking about earlier. So if I select networking here, I have my private endpoint that I created earlier, and that I will start using in order to use this as the NFS storage that is accessible both from the source database and to the target 23 AI autonomous database that I showed you earlier. So Mihai, if you're ready, you can take over again.
Yes, of course. Okay, so now the first bits of the environment were created, meaning that we have the autonomous database created and the NFS share created in order for the files needed for the migration to be transferred between the source and the target database. And now let's quickly have a look at the other important bit of the migration process, the Golden Gate deployment. And if we go to OCI, Oracle Cloud Console, we access Oracle Marketplace and choose all applications and search here for database migrations. Okay, we have this particular Golden Gate type of deployment that I mentioned during the presentation of the architecture. And as you can see, it's free of charge. So what we'll need to do here is click on Launch Stack, provision a compute instance that contains all the necessary that will reside on whatever compartment you prefer on your cloud tenant. And then after you just fill in this generic information needed for this deployment, like networking, the availability domain, and so on, in a couple of minutes the machine will be created. And if we look here in my compartment, we see that I have here a ZDM OGG Oracle Golden Gate deployment, and it's currently running. And let me quickly connect to it. And what we have to do here is basically navigate to this directory. And if we query this directory, we see this archive. So what we need to do is download this archive, which contains the Docker image for Golden Gate, and then just upload it to our machine in Azure. Yeah, our compute instance dedicated for Golden Gate. So in order to make this a little bit clearer, so this is our current deployment. We have this virtual machine, which is our source 19C database. We have this virtual machine, which is used by the Golden Gate deployment, and we have this virtual machine that is used for our ZDM tool. And let's have a quick look at our ZDM, our Oracle Golden Gate deployment. So we are going to connect to the Docker image. For example, if we just want to see how the Docker image deployment looks like, for example, we can just issue this command, and we see this is our 23 AI Golden Gate deployment. Yeah, and we can connect to it. Okay, then connect you as the Golden Gate user for this machine, and then just check the status of our Golden Gate deployment. We just need to connect with the username and password that were created during the deployment of the Golden Gate image. As mentioned, this is prompted to you when you deploy the Docker image. And let's quickly connect to see what's the current status of our Golden Gate deployment. Okay, and we can use info all, and we see that we have all the servers, the Golden Gate process is up and running, and also we have an extract and replicate process that are already created. Why we have this? Because as Emiel mentioned, we did a part of the migration prior to this session in order not to spend a lot of time waiting for all the steps to be completed. And now, since we have seen how easy it was to deploy the Golden Gate image in Azure in order to use it for database migrations, let's move to the ZDM VM. And as I said, after we go through all the steps that are mentioned in the guide that I already went through together with you, we need to start the actual migration process. And in order to do so, we just need to do an evaluation job. So the nice thing about ZDM is that prior to the actual triggering of the migration process, it has an evaluation phase that will make sure that your database, your source database, and or your configuration of the ZDM architecture is good to go for the migration in order not to have any surprises and to have some failures during the process. And in order to do so, we are just going to trigger the evaluation part of the migration process. And in order to do so, we will need to specify a set of information like the password of system user, the password of Golden Gate admin user in the source database, now the password of the admin user on the Autonomous database, the password of the Golden Gate admin user in the Autonomous database, and very important, the password of the OGG admin user on the Golden Gate hub. So this will enable ZDM to connect to our Golden Gate deployment. Okay, now the job was triggered with job ID 46. And now in order to see how the job is progressing, we just need to issue this command, ZDM CLI query job and the job ID. Okay, sorry, 46. Okay. And in order to do so, to check the progress of the job, we can issue this command at any point in time or just tail the log of the job that is generated here. Okay. Okay, as you can see, it checks the source database, the target database. It checks if ZDM checks if it's enabled to connect to the target to the Golden Gate deployment. And very important, we see this step running CPAT, Cloud Pre-Migration Advisor tool on the source node. This tool, it's a very important tool. The CPAT, it's a very important tool that because it does an assessment on the target database to see it's a good fit for migration to Autonomous database. And if you want, ZDM checks the results, and if there is any issue, it will prompt you. But if you want to see exactly what things the CPAT evaluated, you can just access this file and check the report of the CPAT tool. Very important, CPAT tool can be downloaded as well as a standalone tool from Oracle support. You just download the tool, extract it, and run it on your database that you want to migrate. And you can specify that the type of target, autonomous, dedicated, serverless, ATP, ADV, and so on. And this CPAT tool will do a comprehensive analysis of your source database and prompt you if there are any issues that can be a blocker to the migration process or things that you need to be brought into your attention that need to be changed before you go to the migration. And as you can see, in almost 2 minutes, the job completed. And the other phases that it did were check the Golden Gate hub, see that all the processes are running. Then the ZDM tool checked the accessibility from data pump perspective of the NFS file share that was mounted both on the source and the target database. And as you can see here, it created some dummy files, just to see if the connectivity is possible and everything is okay. And if we go here on the source database, so for example, let's connect to our Autonomous database. So this is the connection to our Autonomous database, and let's query the NFS mount that we did to our Autonomous database. And as you can see, this is the file that was generated by our validation process, the validation transfer log. And this means that we can access the NFS mount point from the Autonomous database. Now, as you can see here, I'm connected on the source 19c database, and if I go to the root directory ls, of course, we mounted this file share to the just a second, to the database server as well. So if we go here and we do an ls, we see as well the same files that the autonomous database can see. So from the architecture perspective, we are good to go from every area of concern. Now let's go back to the ZDM machine. And what I did prior to this demo, in order to speed up things and not lose time waiting for all the steps to be to go, is that I've executed this command, which triggers the actual migration process. Now that we know that the evaluation was successful, we can go to the actual deployment. And for a logical online migration to autonomous database, the recommended flow of things is that we pause after this step, ZDM monitor gglag, meaning that, okay, the data was exported from the source database, imported into our target autonomous database 23 AI. Then Golden Gate was configured. We saw that we have this extract and replicate processes in place, ready to recover any changes on the source database that occurred from the moment of the export. Yeah. And then we can pause at this particular step, because it's very important from application perspective. We can connect to the autonomous database and just check if the data is really synced. So now let's do a similar step. So this all the activity went till this step. So after the Golden Gate extract and replica processes are created and there is no log, ZDM job migration job is paused. And now let's connect to the autonomous database. And then what I have here is a connection to my source 19c database. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to insert some rows to see if they get replicated from the source database to the target database. Just to make sure that we are in the right place, I'm going to issue this select from VDOLR version to see exactly that we are on the 19c database. SQL developer may need a little bit to check if the connection is still on or not. Okay, cool. Okay, so we are on the 19c source database, and let's do one thing before we insert the data. Select count from. We are going to see the actual number of rows in countries of our source database, and now let's see the actual count of the rows on our autonomous database. But here, since we are connected with the admin user, we'll need to specify the schema. So the user that we migrated is called test, and it has some tables in it. And okay, we see 38. So the data is in sync. Now let's insert some data. Okay. 6. Let's check. 806. Okay. We just need to keep okay, now let's do it one more time. Okay, so now we inserted some rows into the source countries table. We click on commit, And now let's query countries table, refresh. Okay, so we have 41 rows in our source database. Now, in a couple of seconds, the data should be propagated into our Autonomous Database 23 AI. Okay, so the data was moved by Golden Gate with the extract and replica processes, and the databases are in sync. So this pause at after the Golden Gate configuration is up and running means that you can keep your database in sync as long as you want, and when you are 100% sure from application perspective that you're good to go for the migration, you just resume the process, and that's it. You can put your application to the new autonomous database. And let's see how we can resume the job. We need to go to our ZDM deployment and click on the resume, issue the resume command. Resume job ID 46. This is the ID of our ZDM job. But first of all, before we trigger the actual resume, let's have a look at all the steps that the actual migration process did. Okay, so this is the output of the actual ZDM tool. So what it did is started by just checking actually it's similar with the validation process. It checked the source and the target database connectivity, then it did the export of the data, copied the files into the NFS share, then import the data into the autonomous database, and then checked if the Golden Gate replication is up and running. As you can see here, it created the extract process, the replicate process, did all the bits and pieces for the import operation, then checked if there is any lag at Golden Gate level for the extract and replicate process, and then at the end it paused at this particular bit, which is after monitoring the GG lag, it paused and the databases are in sync. Okay, and now we just need to resume this our actual migration job, which has the 44 job ID. And okay, let's click on the resume command. Resume. Job ID 44. And now we can query the same log to see if things are progressing. And as you can see, things are progressing. What the ZDM job will do will clean up the Golden Gate replication, clean up the Golden Gate environment, and then at the end we'll check the databases if they are still okay, up and running, and then the migration is complete. You can point your application to your new target database, which is a 23 AI database deployment. Yeah, so this will take a couple of minutes, so I think we don't need to stay and watch the evolution of the log till the end. Also, another nice information to have would be that if you're familiar with this platform, it's called LiveLab platform. It's a free of charge platform that contains workshops for customers, and customers can test for free Oracle products. Yeah, with no cost, no licenses requirements. Basically, you will be able to use in some cases an internal Oracle Cloud tenant dedicated for these workshops, and in other cases your own Oracle Cloud tenant. And if we click for Zero downtime migration. As you can see, we have a lot of workshops that can be used to check and go through the actual migration process. So for example, logical organized migration to Oracle Autonomous Database. In this case, Autonomous Database will be provisioned in OCI, in the Oracle Cloud. But the idea is that you'll have a free platform that you can test and play with the configuration of ZDM, parameters, and so on. So I will post this link as well in the chat section, and maybe my colleagues will make it available for
I just did it, Mihai.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, and this concludes our demo on ZDM. As you can see, the final steps of the migration or of the ZDM migration process are undergoing, but I think you got a really nice overview on the actual ZDM migration process. So yeah, thank you very much for your time.
We hope that you enjoyed the session, that you learned from our specialist today, because so many of you have asked for it. The session is recorded and will be shared with you in the thank you email that you will get this Friday, and it will be posted on the Slack channel, I would say tomorrow afternoon. So we will make sure to share it with everybody. And in case you cannot join us on Slack, as I said, you will get it via email, as long as of course you ask for it. Before I go the upcoming events, bear with me for one moment, because I would like to launch a poll now. And this is about the sessions that we would like to schedule for our customers in the near future. So please keep on, just read all the options that you see and vote. You can pick multiple options. We usually, as I said, build these events based on your needs. So we will read all these answers and we will try to accommodate the topics based on what was voted the most. The only catch is, of course, we are, I think we are up to January now with the schedule. So whatever you voted today, it will be seen later on in the next calendar year. Okay, let's see. I think it is stable now. I would like to wait just a couple of seconds more, and then we can go straight to the resources part. And as I said, a copy of the presentation that you saw today will be shared on Slack together with a recording. If you'd like to get it via email, in case, of course, you cannot join us on Slack, feel free to email us at the email address that we announced at the start, and I will mention it again at the very end of the event. Okay, I think it is stable now. So let me quickly share the results with you. Let's see which one was voted the most. I think it's the AI and application innovation. And since you asked for it, actually, there will be an event talking about this next week. I will mention it right away. So there are two places where you can find information regarding our upcoming events. One is the developer coaching events page, and the other one is the Oracle for developers page. We have all the links, both links here on the page, but you have them also on chat and Q&A on the resources links. Next week, we will talk about Oracle GPU power, and we will showcase how to accelerate Kubernetes and Kubeflow workflows. If you'd like to learn more about this service, feel free to go to our events page and register. The next week, we will talk about, the week after, we will talk about e-business suite to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure in action. And we have got the Oracle Lift team joining us to deliver this event. So if you'd like to see an end-to-end process of migration, an on-premise Oracle e-business suite instance to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure using EBS Cloud Manager's backup module, feel free to go to our page and register for this event. Okay, that was all regarding upcoming events. So here is another page you might be interested in checking, namely AI Solution Hub. You have the link on chat, you have the link on Q&A. Here is, I think, a great place for you to search for and to see Oracle AI in action. So you will see a lot of real-world scenarios, demos, use cases, how to get started, and a lot of other tutorial videos. Feel free to save this page and, of course, be ready to learn about our AI capabilities. Here is another slide with other materials and resources available to you. I will not take you through all of these links because, as I said, you will get a copy of this presentation on Slack. And if you would like to get it via email, feel free to save this address that you see now on the screen, which is contact-tcx-mia_ww@oracle.com. Let me quickly see if there is something that we haven't touched. Thank you, Ettore, for sharing the AI Solutions Hub link.
All good, B.
All good, so nothing to be covered. Okay, then, if nothing else, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Emiel, Mihai, for presenting to us. Thank you, Marcus, for being there and supporting with the Q&A. We hope that you will come back soon at developer coaching events to deliver another great session. And we hope that our customers enjoy it. And one more thing, I will post now, 1 second, give me one moment. I will post now on public Slack an announcement. I just did it. So once you will see it, you will have the possibility to ask for a private call with Mihai and Emiel to chat about the use case that we delivered today. So not a support call, not replacing any of the sales or current workload discussions that you might have. So first, 2 customers who will respond yes will be contacted by either myself or Tom, and we will try to schedule a 20-minute call that you can use to discuss with our specialist today about this topic. So first come, first served. Feel free to go to the developers coaching channel now, write your comment there, and then you get a message from us. Many thanks to all, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Take care and see you soon.